Okay, folks, this is one I've been waiting to get to for a minute to kind of continue my series about how countries handle out of wedlock births. And of course, you saw in my original post about out of wedlock births and why they may occur. I'm not saying it's definite, but why they may occur. In the countries that allow it and allow it to actually go up to a high rate, such as France, Sweden, even South America, Colombia, and Chile, versus low out of wedlock countries such as South Korea, Japan, and Singapore. But also one that's in the European Union that normally has, like, I think the average is like 40% out of wedlock birth rate in the European Union. And you have one that seems to be closer to a Asian way of looking at things, which is Greece. Greece's out of wedlock birth rate is below 10. I think it's gone from like a 6 to, like, I think in the last few years up to like 9. In other words, it's risen, but it's still below 10%. So I talked about South Korean 1, and I talked about which is low, which is 2%. And I talked about the extreme, which is Colombia, which is 84% out of wedlock birth rate. And now we're going to swing back to Greece, which is an anomaly inside the European Union. Inside the EU, they're an anomaly. They're way, way below. I think the next closest one to the EU, the EU is like maybe over 20%. So they're half of what even normally the next lowest country is. So we're going to read this, and I'll be back on the other side. Unmarried mothers, most vulnerable group of all. Single fathers are usually in a better economic situation than single mothers. Consider the viewpoint of one 45-year-old man, a widower who is a father of 2 teenage girls. Things are actually easier than they seem at the beginning of a single parenthood, he says. We don't have any financial problems, and the kids are essentially at an age where they can take care of themselves. Of course, they're always with friends, and their school is 300 meters from home. Here in Kerastini, in southwestern Athens, we have a real neighborhood. Unwed mothers have the hardest time. They often get little help from home because traditional Greek society has not accepted them. Widows, on the other hand, are a different story. The divide is explained by an unwed mother who is part of a study by IPROSEC, Improving Public Responses and Outcomes to Socioeconomic Challenges, a European Union initiative, on changing family structures. That's something that I'm going to actually look them up. But that's something that they're doing in the Nordic countries. European Union Initiative on Changing Family Structures, Policy, and Practice currently being applied in 11 member states. Divorced women have status in the social and working environment. This unwed mother said, divorced women have social status in society and the workplace. For us, it's a totally different situation, even from our own family environment. We also have problems with our children not being recognized by the fathers. So DNA testing is thrown into the mix. Most of the women who have joined the Pan-Hellenic Association of Single Parents in the past few years have been unwed mothers, according to the organization's general secretary. These women have often given birth to their children under very dramatic circumstances, and everyone puts them down for keeping their children. Some had reached the crucial age of 35 and didn't want to risk an abortion. Many had long-term relationships that were headed for marriage, and in the end, the men backed out. Men are always afraid of family responsibilities, so they say. In the past, society's morals didn't allow a man to leave a pregnant woman at the altar. Relatives got involved and they made the man accept his responsibilities. That's shotgun wedding. Today, there is no family or social pressure on men. The state also does not make men accept their responsibilities. The situation is worse for unwed mothers in rural Greece, said A. Stefanidi, founder of single parents group of Agrion in Western Greece. Society doesn't want to have anything to do with them, Stefanidi said. They don't have any support from their families. These girls face a stigma, as do their children. The kids are not considered legitimate and they have problems in school. This is very similar to what went on in South Korea, where single mothers and their children are almost shunned. And they had to form an alliance similar to this to get support. So even though they have different social structures, because an Asian social structure is much different from a European one, but it's very similar in their outlook toward unwed mothers and women having children out of wedlock. Now, the European way in the old patriarchal system is we used to have, say, before 1960, is the shotgun wedding, where you actually families did force the man to marry the woman that he impregnated. So there was a lot of pressure on the woman, but there was also pressure on the men. In other words, you broke it, you bought it. And also women were actually looked down upon for actually giving it up like that outside of wedlock. So Greece is still holding on to some very old European values. Hence why the out of wedlock birth rate is very low. But you can see by the European Union and the organization that they have to actually change the family structure is they're trying to prevent, if you look at Greece, if you look at the shape of Greece, you look at the shape of the pyramid in the picture, you can actually see that the snow cone shape or the ice cream cone shape, where you have the bulk at the top and you have the thinning stem down at the bottom, which is a declining, which is the D cycle, which is declining population. So eventually your society would either die out or actually be taken over by a faster growing society, according to Quigley. Same thing in like Japan or South Korea. They're trying to battle that right now. They're trying to figure, South Korea is actually very young in this cycle, but they're trying to figure out how they're going to stabilize their population. Whereas Japan's been like that for years. And what Japan has started doing is actually importing people. And I'm sure South Korea will start doing that sometime in the near future to actually bolster their population, if they can get people from other populations, because there's very few populations or societies in the world that have surplus people. Most of the people they have are there to keep the population stable, to keep the population from declining. Get places like Germany, the United States, even France, they actually do both. They import people and they have a high out of wedlock birth rate. So going forward, I'm actually going to look up that group and see exactly what they're talking about is their different family formation. This is a very, very intentional thing that's going on with this very high out of wedlock birth rate. I don't know if the United States meant to do it when they first started doing it, but the thing is, I know that they do it now. The European Union, I know the 11 countries that actually do it, I know it's intentional. I've read a little bit about Chile and Colombia, and they changed their policy, so I think this is intentional. So this is societies reacting to the environment or the social environment to keep their societies from declining, because they're post-industrial, and there's only two ways to go: either you stabilize or you decline, because you're past the growth phase. The only thing that helped the United States out was post-war, where you killed a lot of people and you had this big baby boom. Other than that, we probably would be more like South Korea, where we're below 1. But since I did a lot of explaining on our previous videos, I won't really go too deep into detail here. So I'll leave this one fairly short. I don't think it needs a whole lot of explanation. This is just me documenting that this phenomenon, it does exist. Now, the reason behind the phenomenon could be questioned, but the phenomenon does exist. And the reaction to the phenomenon is probably real. They haven't come out and stated it, that this is the reason that they actually did. I think there was one paper that actually mentioned it, but they really haven't stated it, that this is intentional and this is why they're doing it. But it does seem to be fairly uniform across the board. The ones that did do it and the ones that didn't do it. The ones that hold on to old patriarchal values like Greece, like Japan, and like South Korea are having a demographic decline. Where the ones that have been more liberal and allowing out of wedlock birth rates and allowing the women a little more freedom to actually have different family structures, their population is increasing. Now, this could be biological or psychological. It'd be difficult to tell because there is no smoking gun or identifiable bullet. It can say, okay, this is what causes it. The closest thing we have is the mouse utopia study where this phenomenon was actually seen in mice. But that's all I got for this one. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.